future. New building techniques and new designs in low-impact domestic architecture. Remote medical technology bridging huge distances. And traditional art like you've never seen it before. Innovation Park, on the outskirts of London, was set up in 2005 by Britain's building research establishment. Its objective is to design and build housing that has a minimal impact on the environment. Here, the BRE is constantly testing new construction methods. From the outside, this red brick house doesn't seem to be a radical departure from traditional style dwellings. But the Hanson Eco House is designed to maximise the benefits of freely available heat. A central stair core below the roof opening maximises convection, similar to the way in which a kiln releases hot air up through a brick chimney.
One of the key features of this house is its thermal mass, and they wanted to really showcase how this building can be designed in a way that really enhances that feature. So one of the things that they've done is through this sort of stack effect, they've allowed warm air to sort of come in at the base of the building and rise through natural convection through the building and up and vent it out through the chimney.
The Hanson Eco House meets part of its energy needs using a solar collector and ground source heat pump. Rainwater passes into a tank below the base of the house, and this is linked by a layer of flexible piping to the ground source heat pump to provide space heating and domestic hot water. The pitch of the roof has been designed to maximise the exposure to the sun of its solar collector. One of the fundamental ways the houses at Innovation Park get their green credentials is in their method of construction. The Ecotech Organics House, being constructed here, is a 3-storey dwelling which includes a self-contained apartment on the ground floor and a 2-bedroom dwelling on the first and second floors. The building is designed so that it can be configured in any of a number of ways, from studio apartments to a 5-bedroom house. Recently, Barratt Developments unveiled its greenhouse, the first home at BRE to be constructed by a mainstream home builder. In Britain by 2016, all new homes will have to have a zero net carbon footprint. This means that any energy consumed by a house has to be less than or equal to that replaced through renewable technologies. By 2010, builders of new homes will be required to provide a carbon rating assessment. New home buyers will be given certificates showing just how green their homes are. A code for sustainable homes has been developed as a single national standard to guide industry in the design and construction of sustainable homes. The most efficient house on display at Innovation Park is the Kingspan Lighthouse, which has achieved level 6 of the Code for Sustainable Homes. The walls are constructed from insulating material, enclosed in wood panels, maximising heat retention. Its heat recovery system is continuously monitored and controlled by a computer to optimise energy use.
Many companies have really rolled their sleeves up, have opened their checkbooks and invested in all sorts of activity that allows them to develop the products that make homes more green. I think they've recognised that if it's not government that demand it, it will be the public that demand greener homes that are more cost-effective to run as well.
The buildings include wide-ranging renewable energy technologies, including biomass boilers, wind catchers and solar thermal arrays. Australia is a very sparsely inhabited country. Although it has several large cities, the vast stretches of rural land are thinly populated, and distances to the regional centres and the services they offer can be huge. When an accident happens in a remote area, trauma victims will suffer if they cannot be quickly and accurately diagnosed. Now, specialists at a major hospital in Melbourne can assess patients by observing them via online images. The system is being rolled out across the state of Victoria.
At the moment they rely on the phone. With this system they'll be able to rely on real-time imaging and all of the telemetry and information they have at the hospital, so we'll get a better outcome, we'll get a better diagnosis.
Doctors in the rural town of Bendigo can now video conference with trauma specialists at the Alfred Hospital in Melbourne. Trauma experts can see the patient on screen and personally monitor their vital signs in real time. Australia's vast distances have always led health professionals to unique solutions, such as the system of aerial ambulances. The Rural Doctors Association is backing the initiative, saying it supports rather than replaces rural doctors.
This is really a one-of-a-kind application, and it's very unique, and it'll definitely provide some real benefits to the residents of rural Victoria.
The system has two vital components: remote patient monitoring technology and mobile video communication. Only if there is a pressing need for treatment will a patient be transported to a major hospital. Using laptops and digital video technology, district nurses can have virtual consultations with doctors and specialists on an ad hoc basis. Patients can receive treatment in their homes, yet they have the benefit of the personal attention of senior specialists working in major centres. Patients with chronic heart disease, asthma and diabetes can be monitored and cared for at home.
We will find Generation X and Generation Y children starting to demand this sort of service and force a change from the current method of health service delivery upon us.
The technology reduces the need for patients to travel long distances for a 5-minute follow-up consultation. Around the world, the scent released by spring blossoms is being neutralised by increasing levels of air pollution, affecting the ability of pollinating bees to find them. Noxious chemical molecules bond with the flower's gaseous scent molecules, changing the fragrance.
When you have a clean atmosphere, an atmosphere that you might have found early in the 1800s, the floral scents in our model would travel downwind, and after about traveling a kilometer, we found that only about 20% of those floral scents were destroyed by reacting with air pollution. However, when you have a really polluted atmosphere, we found that the floral scent is almost completely destroyed at that same distance. So basically, air pollution is reacting with floral scents, destroying those floral scent trails, and we think that that could have dire consequences for pollinator and the populations and the plant populations that depend upon those pollinators.
Reduced scent and its effect on bees is having a broader impact on the ecosystem. 1/3 of the human food supply is dependent on pollinators, and the effect of poor air quality could make it vulnerable. Some researchers say the lessening of floral fragrance is contributing to a dramatic decline in the worldwide bee population. Beekeepers say it's unclear whether the dwindling bee population is due to telephone towers, insecticides or disease that has been devastating their bee colonies. This has led to a shortage of bees, causing bee prices and the cost of pollination services to soar. Now, because of these price rises, hives are in great demand, and hive theft is becoming a common crime. California's top agricultural export is its almond crop, and in mid-March, the almond blossom is in full bloom. Bees are needed to pollinate the orchards from mid-February to early March. Because almonds are the first crop to flower, the state's growers are the first to suffer if bees are in short supply. Californian beekeeper Brian Beekman runs a large apiary, placing hives in orchards during the short pollination period. But his business has been hit by hive thieves.
It can be a very, very serious problem. A lot of worrying, stress, and laying in bed at night wondering, you know, when you come back to your bee yard, are the bees going to be there or are they going to be gone?
Last year, 124 of Beekman's hives were stolen. The theft cost him $45,000 in lost bees, pollination fees and honey production. Without the bees, there would be no almond crop.
you have a contract with the grower, and then all of a sudden you got to call up the grower and say, hey, you know what, I had some bees stolen, I don't have the hives for you, and it's not my fault, but I'll try to see what I can do to get some more, but it does cause havoc.
The Fresno County Sheriff's Department recognises the bee theft problem has serious implications. Detective Kent Jones from the department's Agricultural Task Force says some of the theft has been due to disorganised farmers.
You have to get your order in early to these apiaries to get your bees, otherwise they're not going to have the supply they once had, and each year it goes down.
California produces 80% of the world's almond supply, and annually the crop brings in around $1 billion. But the bee shortage is largely the result of a puzzling ailment that causes adult bees to forsake their hives. This has caused a quadrupling in the cost of renting a hive during the pollination season. Some beekeepers have added microchip locators to their hives to aid in their recovery. So far, disease and hive theft hasn't affected the value of California's almond industry. But if bee numbers continue to dwindle, most agricultural industries will be affected. On the outskirts of Cardiff, a manufacturer of silicon-free thin-film solar cells is aiming to bring alternative energy to the developing world. Unlike conventional silicon cells, these cells are flexible and light. Made from relatively low-cost materials, they mimic the way plants convert the sun's rays into energy. The dye-sensitized solar cells, known as Greatsol cells after their inventor, are made of low-cost materials and do not need elaborate apparatus for their manufacture. The cells consist of two conducting electrodes in a sandwich configuration. On one of the electrodes, a compact but very porous layer of titanium dioxide is deposited. Robert Hertzberg is the chairman and founder of G24 Innovations.
We've come up with a new technology invented by a professor in Switzerland that's a flexible, lightweight, very lightweight, flexible solar cell. It works in low light conditions. You don't need to be in direct sunlight to get electricity from this type of solar cell.
They were tested in Antarctica.
Most people think that solar panels must be in the sun. Well, let me show you something. We're charging this battery outside my little home here, and it shows that even with no sun, we've got power going into this battery. Really very special, and really proving that solar power does not have to be always working in bright sunlight.
They plan to sell solar-powered phone chargers in developing regions where mobile phone use is growing, but electricity supply is poor. The cells must function in all kinds of environmental conditions, and rigorous testing is an important part of product development. Here they are trying to recreate the conditions that might be experienced in the desert. And because flexibility is an important factor in the cell's design, they are subjected to an extreme cycle of flex testing. This solar charger is ideal for the supply of small amounts of green power. But for the generation of larger amounts of green energy, researchers in Australia are working with wave power. Small-scale models of a new design are now being tested in Tasmania.
Well, these devices each are designed to produce in the order of 0.5 megawatt, and the idea is you would deploy them in multiples, like you would a wind farm, but under the ocean surface.
The devices are designed to move in a similar way to ocean fish and plants, while getting power from waves and tidal currents. They'll be secured to the ocean floor and are more than 20 metres high. Small-scale models are being put through final testing in a tank at the Australian Maritime College, which simulates currents and waves. While generating power from the ocean isn't new, these designs aim to have a low impact on the environment. 2 full-scale prototypes will soon be installed in Tasmanian waters. The systems move and sway in tune with the forces of the ocean.
We've designed these from the concept stage to have a very low, minimal environmental footprint. For example, the mooring base that we put in has a very small diameter to avoid disruption of the seabed.
Testing in a controlled environment allows the designers to get very accurate measurements to predict what would happen in real-world conditions. The BioWave and BioStream devices are designed to supply utility-scale, grid-connectable renewable energy using modular systems situated below the ocean surface. A different type of no-emissions energy is being developed further north in Australia. Beneath the Cooper Basin in the country's central desert, vast amounts of fractured granite has been heated by radiogenic decay. At a depth of around 4,000 metres, the hot rock is easily within reach of proven drilling technology. Pumping water into this layer results in a return stream of superheated steam that can easily be harnessed to generate electricity. At this stage, the only problem is the area's distance from the country's power grid.
Potentially this area we can double the world's geothermal power.
Geodynamics is a publicly listed company with the goal of transforming the underground heat into emissions-free electricity. This is the company's first successful production well, and soon a pilot generation plant will be producing 1 megawatt of electricity. This plant will be mainly used to demonstrate the technology to governments and potential investors, but the power it will generate will provide welcome relief for the 12 residents of nearby Inaminka. They'll be able to switch off their expensive generators. If the ambitious plan proceeds to its next stage, by 2016, Geodynamics hopes to have about 90 wells, producing enough electricity for almost 800,000 people.
If this technology is proven up, as we expect it will be, we will want to link it into the national grid so that South Australia is a net exporter of a massive amount of green energy.
Linking the area with the national grid will mean building transmission lines of almost 1,000 kilometres. But with high voltage direct current techniques, the losses will only be around 5%. Further south in Australia, another drilling rig is being used for a project that aims to inject waste carbon dioxide into the ground. The Otways plant in the state of Victoria is the first of its kind in the Southern Hemisphere. The emissions will be injected 2 kilometres underground in what was once a natural gas reservoir.
And we know there are rocks down there that's going to seal it in. We know that there are rocks down there that are going to hold it like water's held in a sponge. So in other words, it's not going to leak out. We're very confident of that.
The experimental technology could significantly reduce the atmospheric effects from the burning of fossil fuel.
2017 is going to be the time when we know for sure that we have the capacity to actually control CO2 emissions from the burning of fossils.
It'll be expensive and there'll be some regulatory and legal issues to look at. Who's going to be liable for the gases once they're pumped underground?
Conservationists argue that the funds would be better spent on developing no-emissions power generation technology like solar or wind. It is hoped the Otways plant will prove that carbon capture is a viable method of limiting emissions of CO2. Most people are fascinated by the ancient world, and virtual reality designers have developed a number of programs that let people look around ancient Rome or Pompeii. But here at the Max Planck Institute for Biological Cybernetics, they decided to take the virtual experience one step further. The head-mounted display is not new, but the multi-directional treadmill, which allows for unrestricted walking in any direction, is. Dubbed the Cyber Walk, the project is the brainchild of a group of German scientists who have developed a virtual Pompeii that can be explored on foot.
The most natural thing that we as humans can do is to walk upright and explore the environment, and that in a virtual environment is not possible.
The developers say the treadmill provides an interaction between perception and locomotion. The head-mounted gear is linked to the treadmill so that any movement across the surface is reflected in an alteration of the perspective the viewer sees in the display. Pompeii was buried in volcanic ash with the eruption of Mount Vesuvius in 79 AD, but the ash preserved a record of the town as it was at the time. The protection of the unearthed town has led to much of it being closed off to the public, which is another reason why virtual Pompeiis are becoming so popular. The developers of the Cyberwalk had to build a multi-dimensional treadmill that could be responsive to changes in the direction of the walker. The floor upon which the walker moves is actually a series of thin treadmills mounted side by side. Together, they form the lateral slats of a larger treadmill that moves at right angles to the smaller units. In combination, the moving floor can travel in all directions to give users the sense of moving in any direction.
So the idea of Pompeii came in from our colleagues in Zurich who developed a so-called city engine, which is a piece of software to create virtual cities in general. Pompeii was picked because it's an architectural site that you cannot walk anymore through because it doesn't exist anymore. Therefore, it's a great showcase to demonstrate what virtual reality can do.
The developers believe the technology has many potential applications. In South Korea, a new exhibition at the Alive Gallery brings movement to some very famous works of art. The exhibition is the first to combine works of art with 3D, hologram and voice recognition technology. The results enable visitors to have virtual conversations with ancient masterpieces and their creators. More than 60 masterpieces are on display at the gallery. Michelangelo, Leonardo da Vinci and Leo Caras are among the famous painters and sculptors represented at the new exhibition in Seoul.
The Alive Gallery is the world's first exhibition that displays works of art with Korean IT technologies. The most special feature of the gallery is that all the exhibits are three-dimensional animations with magic visions and holograms that allow the works of art to come alive.
The exhibition took 2 years to set up and has an open run at the Alive Gallery. Subjects in the Arnolfini portrait, painted by Jan van Eyck in 1434, move freely about the electronic canvas. The interactive works range from cave wall paintings to the Mona Lisa. The virtual Mona Lisa replies to visitor questions in Korean. But there are some questions she will not answer.